Hello and welcome to Move the Line, presented by 4for4 Bets. I'm Ryan Noonan, back here for the last leg of our divisional previews here. Connor Allen, wrap up the AFC East, put a bow on everything here. Well, actually, I didn't even tell you. We'll wrap up the AFC, kind of like we did with the NFC. We'll get maybe like our AFC championship game preview, talk about our Super Bowl matchups to put a bow here on the divisional previews. We have prop drop coming tomorrow, Connor. Season-long props with high slop, getting ready for the season. We are here. Like it is, week one stuff is popping. We're popping out plays in the Discord. Things are going on. What's going on, brother?
Yeah, not much. It's so back. I mean, I just feel it feels great. Like I'm ripping a fantasy draft like every night right now. Like I'm betting on something all the time. We got some other exciting news coming in the next couple of days on the BetSperts group side. So like tons of stuff coming. But yeah, I mean it's awesome. I think this divisional preview series went really well. I feel like we had a lot of good looks and excited to see how it plays out. And no better division to end it with than the AFC East, and your Patriots firmly at the bottom, ready to be one of the worst teams in the league. I mean, just good day to be great. That's all I got to say.
Firmly at the bottom. A good division, though. So again, anywhere you find podcasts, you can find Move the Line if you want to listen to the previous shows. Obviously, this has been something we've done one a week. So you go back to the first one, dated a little bit, but I feel like that analysis is holding up. There's not a lot of massive things that have happened in the world of football in terms of, devastating quarterback injuries or anything that I think would change I would think most of our analysis. So if you want to find any of those, go ahead and do that. You can also find us on YouTube, on the 4for4 Bets YouTube channel as well. Subscribe to both so you don't miss a show. Again, you're going to have 2 episodes a week. So Connor and I will continue to do game by game breakdowns, more sides and total stuff, more matchup driven stuff earlier in the week, typically Thursdays for that. And then you'll see Friday will be the prop show with high slop. And again, that gets off the rails a little bit, folks. So, same game parlays, uncorrelated parlays, again, we'll do some basic props. I'll have some tackle stuff, some defensive stuff, some sacks in there for us weekly. Again, you do not want to miss that every week. It is a lot of fun on Friday afternoons. Great way to end the week, head into the weekend, get you ready for football, especially if you are not spending all week grinding this stuff like we are. I think it's a great way to tune in, get some just overarching thoughts on the week and prepare you for your bets, your fantasy lineups, all that stuff. You're going to have access to all those shows. So don't miss one. Take a second, review the show, subscribe, rate and review. All those things help us out a ton. If you want to get all the plays, we have so many different ways for you to get access to the stuff that we're doing this season. We will continue to find new ways and get you in for cheaper, discounted ways. You want the betting subscription, though. It gets you access to everything that we do on our site. So articles, tools, rankings, projections. We'll have all sorts of DFS in-season content. You're grinding underdog, all that stuff. You want the betting sub because it gets you access to everything, gets you in our Discord, which is where all of our official plays are pushed out. Again, we got guys firing off sides, totals, interceptions, best bets, anything you could possibly think of. You want to get in there. Check that out, 4for4.com/plans. There are a ton of ways. If you just head over to our Twitter, 4for4 football on Twitter, you can find partnerships through BetMGM, through Underdog, through Rebet to get access for cheaper, or just DM us, reach out directly. We'll find ways to help you out. Multiple people this morning in the DMs looking for ways to get access to tackles as we get closer, and just finding the best way that works for you. So again, reach out. We want you a part of what we're doing. We have a great community that is grinding this stuff all the time too, and always ready to help out and be, I think, a great part of your football season. I think we can definitely help you along. So check that out. So, all right, buddy. Last one. We are dealing with the AFC East. Again, 3 really strong, interesting teams that I think are, for a variety of reasons, have some questions, but also some pretty significant upside. And then you got the New England Patriots, who, I mean, let's be honest, just dominated this division for 22 years or so. Now they're just taking a back seat and a little bit of a spot for everyone else to kind of step into it. Schedule-wise, they are playing the AFC South and the NFC West. There's been a shift. I thought when we kicked off the AFC, we would start with the East because we typically do. We went with the South. So I had done some of the prep on the odds for each of the teams, and I had to go back and refresh them because there's been some changes. The New York Football Jets are your current favorites to win this division. They're 20-1 to win the Super Bowl. That's on MGM. They are 10-1 to win the AFC. Again, those prices are a little bit worse than the Bills in terms of like the upside. But from a divisional standpoint, their best price is plus 165, whereas the best price on the Bills is plus 195. So the Jets are your division favorites currently, which is absolutely wild. They have not been in the playoffs in over a decade. Win total 9.5, juiced over, flat 10 out there on Caesars. Again, that is worse than the Bills. So starting with the Jets, though, because I think it's pretty fascinating. Can't remember a team where the expectations were so high to start the season last year, and they're gone in minutes. Obviously, everything was just devastating. Aaron Rodgers down. They go out and win that game, right? Surprisingly, they beat the Bills in week 1. In hindsight, because a lot of Josh Allen turnovers and a lot happened. But again, steamrolled in week 2 by Dallas. They lose to New England in week 3. Too much Zach Wilson, Trevor Siemian, Tim Boyle at quarterback did not go very well. But they've had an interesting offseason. We are putting a lot of eggs in the basket of a soon-to-be 41-year-old quarterback coming off of an Achilles injury. But a lot of the other things there are pretty interesting. Offensive line's better. There's some explosiveness on the offensive side. Defense is pretty much running it back, although we have some question marks there too. But get started, Connor. Talk to me about the Jets.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit on a lot of the big things here. I do my divisional parlays every year, and they were initially in there as the winner. And now I went back to go do it, and I'm like, wait a second, like they're the favorites? I'm like, what's going on here? I just didn't think that we'd ever get to this point where the Jets, being one of the best teams in football on paper heading into the season, was going to be like accepted in the mainstream, because so many people, whenever I tell people, hey, the Jets are going to be awesome this year, they're like, whatever, they're still the Jets, or whatever lame, analysis that is. I'm like, what, like, pay attention to what's going on here. The offensive line is awesome, as you mentioned. Right before we did this show, Mike Williams announced that he's going to be good to go for week 1. Which I think is big, because that gives a little bit more depth to Garrett Wilson there. And they're not just running out, Rodgers cronies as the rest of the entire, offense there. And still have Breece Hall. But I think the big thing was the offensive line. Went from one of the worst to now we have them 13th. So I think that's massive. And then defensively, they added Hassan Reddick, which I think is a big change. They lost one of their defensive linemen as well. I still fully expect them to be a top 5 defense, like through and through, specifically in the passing game. Like, I think their pass defense is going to be really good. And then with a little bit more pass rush from Reddick, maybe, maybe that could help. I don't know.
He's got a report, right? He's got a report. That's kind of like the big news, right? Is that he's, traded him, wanted a contract, has still not been there, has not stepped foot, I don't think, in the building at any point. So that's a huge piece of it, because they basically flipped Bryce Huff for Hassan Reddick in a number of ways. So, I mean, that's kind of the thing that's hanging over them right now. It's been the story of the offseason, and they still don't know what's going to happen there. And that's a big piece, because otherwise they're elite at all 3 levels.
Yep. Yeah. And that matters. So that's definitely something to look for, especially in week 1, which, I mean, then we don't need to get too into it, but there's a lot of fluidity against San Francisco, that doesn't have Trent Williams, doesn't have Brandon Ayuk, but then do the Jets have Hassan Reddick? Because if they do, I mean, there's a lot of fluidity with this line right now and where it's going to move. So, but from holistically, I'm excited about this Jets team. Favored in 14 games. They have some really easy games. Play the Pats twice, Titans, Broncos, Vikings, Steelers, Cardinals, and Seahawks, where, some of those teams towards the end are kind of like fringe, maybe okay teams. But I mean, again, like, I think they're still a good bit better than all of them. So I don't know if I'm betting them to win the division at the current price, but we've been talking about it all offseason as a good bet. So hopefully you lock that in now. And if you do need to bet on a team, or like you just, I don't know, gun to head, you want to bet on it, they're still my pick. But from a value perspective, maybe it's somewhere else.
The schedule's nice, right? We touch on the unique 3 with every one of these teams, because they're going to play essentially the other 14 teams overlap, or 14 games, right? Obviously you don't play yourself, but you're playing the other teams. They're all the same, but the 3 are unique. And the Jets have the 4th easiest schedule in the league. They're Pittsburgh, Minnesota, and Denver, whereas the rest of the league is playing, or the division is playing, some of the harder teams. Like the Bills have a significantly harder, right? If it becomes Jets or Bills, the Bills' unique 3 is Baltimore, Detroit, Kansas City. So that's so hard, right? Those are all playoff teams, where I'm not sure you make the case for Pittsburgh, Minnesota, or Denver in the playoffs for any of those teams. So that's a big piece. The offensive line was the question coming in last year, and now it's a strength, and they have depth. Like, I don't know that Olu Fashanu, their 1st-round pick, is starting in week 1. They don't even necessarily need him. He's going to be kind of a swing guy, which is kind of wild to be in that position. So Definitely a unique thing there. I do have questions about the depth behind Garrett Wilson, but I think Garrett Wilson is so damn good that it almost doesn't matter. And I think we know what Rodgers can do when he has kind of an alpha wide receiver one and is okay feeding him. Yet coming off of an ACL, I'd rather have him back obviously right away than not at all. Just been a guy that's obviously has not stayed healthy throughout his career. Otherwise, you're bringing again the Allen Lazards into the world a little bit faster than you would want to. But Bryce Hall is a home run hitter, right? Like passing game on the ground with a bad offensive line last year. I think he's like really good. I think he's one of those few like running backs at this point in the game that really are massive difference makers. So those two guys are huge. It just is what's left of Rodgers. He was not good in his last year. Last year in Green Bay without Devontae Adams, kind of on cruise control, didn't really have it going. There was kind of questions about that last year. Now we're taking the Achilles kind of in it too. So like that's a very easy outside of the very lazy. They're the Jets, right? Which is just like there's nothing really to that, right? Like yes, they're the Jets. The Patriots again, like you won't remember because you're young, and enjoy the youth, Connor. The Pats were terrible forever. They were very, very bad. So it was like the Patriots had a stink on them for forever too. Like, oh, you're the Patriots. Like they're never going to be good until they were dominant for 20-something years, right? So obviously the Jets are not built for a 20-something year run at this point, but they are built for a run now, right? There's not a ton of turnover defensively, but some of it can be good if Reddick comes in. I mean, you have a dude like Sauce Gardner. You have maybe one of the best interior defensive linemen in Quentin Williams. You have a nice linebacker crew. DJ Reed is awesome too. So when you put like bookend corners like that, like they have blue chippers all over it. So is Robert Saleh like a dude? I don't know. I don't feel great about it, but it's just Rodgers, man. Is he good? Is he okay? Can he be? We don't need MVP Rodgers, but can he stay upright? I think they're going to be damn good. And look at the start of the schedule, right? We talked about the San Fran game, and that's gone from like -5.5, and now it's down to like 4, and you're going to probably see it get closer to 3 if it looks like Trent Williams is not playing because San Fran's on-off splits without Williams are pretty substantial. But look what happens after it. It is Tennessee, New England, Denver, Minnesota to start. Like they're kind of interesting in that like first 5 scenario. If you think that they're actually live in against San Francisco, that's probably a pretty nice way. And then it just doesn't really pick up like coin flip against the Bills. Then they get the Steelers in New England again. Like it gets really, really soft. And we're going to see them a ton because I think like they are basically every other week or so in prime time until we get to like December or something like that. They play like 6 primetime games. I think like the first 10 or 11 weeks or something nuts like that. So we're going to go all primetime Rodgers. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah. And also too, I want to mention to the audience there, I think you mentioned Bryce Hall instead of Brees Hall. Your brain is so
I'm sorry.
Pilled
Yes, Bryce Huff. I'm sorry.
Bryce that instead of Brees, it's so funny. You're always just on the defensive side here. I love it. I gave a little chuckle there for those watching on the YouTube show. But no, I think analysis is spot on. I think they're an awesome team. Like we mentioned we were going to talk about our AFC Championship game. I think the Jets are making it. I think the Jets are making the AFC Championship game. That's I just feel very, very good that Aaron Rodgers can be a game manager for the first time in like maybe his career. And they have the pieces around him for that to happen. Like it's just so their quarterback situation was so unfathomably bad before. Like it's like the last 2 years, it's just been a complete abomination. I mean, longer than 2 years, but with this same setup, and they still won 7 games last year. Like it's crazy. They still, to this day, their defense gives Josh Allen fits routinely gives them fits. And the Patriots were, I mean, again, that's another level. No Patriots quarterback has been able to figure out the Jets defense. Well, I guess actually Zach Wilson did once, I think maybe like 2 years ago.
He did
one good game, and then that was it. So, I think this Jets team here, like maybe bet alt overs. Again, their schedule is super soft. Maybe the first 5 markets way to play it. I mean, because even after the week 6, they play Buffalo, but then they get Steelers and the Patriots again, week 7, 8. So, like, I mean, they're going to have one of the best records in the league after 8 weeks.
It's one of those times where we touched on, I think it was like the AFC South, where like getting in at the right time matters. But I think getting in early on the Jets matters because the prices are going to shrink. Like Jeff in the chat, the O-line sucks. Like, that's just not true, but like it used to suck. It sucked last year. But it just doesn't suck anymore. They like poached a couple of starters from Baltimore. They drafted Fashanu. Tittman last year was nice. I think Elijah Vera Tucker is one of the best guards in football. It's a good offense. I'm not saying it's an elite offensive line, but it's good and there's depth. And those are two things they did not have at all last year. I mean, Tyron Smith in for Mekhi Becton, that's a win. Simpson, Morgan Moses from Baltimore, those are upgrades for them. So yeah, it's a team you probably want to get in on early, and there's definitely some pretty significant upside if they can hold on. And again, tough late. I like the way that the schedule makers kind of put this together late in the season. Buffalo in Miami to finish. So right, if these three teams are all battling it out, we're going to have some interesting battles here too. So yeah, they're going to be interesting. All right, move on here to our next squads. Buffalo Bills. Again, they are ahead of the Jets in some of the markets. 17-1 to win the Super Bowl. Caesars and FanDuel. 9-1 to win the AFC. Plus 195 to win the division on DraftKings and Caesars. 10.5 is the win total. It is juiced to the under. Pretty wild ride last year. I think the expectations are pretty high. I mean, they were my Super Bowl pick for the AFC. I know Clark was there as well. I know you like them too. And you lose that week 1 game against the Jets. All of a sudden, they're like 6-6, and they look like they're on the wrong side of the playoffs. And they got hot late in the year, and heading into the playoffs, felt like they were probably one of the best teams. And then missed field goal late at home against the Chiefs, and they are packing their bags, and the Chiefs move on and obviously do what they did. And it's been a busy offseason. You have one of the best quarterbacks in football, the second best quarterback in football. Your ceiling remains extremely high, and I think their ceiling remains extremely high because I don't think that there's a strong case for anyone other than Josh Allen to be the next best quarterback in the league outside of Patrick Mahomes. But I don't know what to make of the offseason. Talk to me about the Bills.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving pieces here. Especially on the offensive side here. Like they lost Gabe Davis, lost Stephon Diggs. They added Ray Davis, a running back, Keon Coleman, Curtis Samuel. Right now, like from their receiving core, it looks like Keon Coleman's going to play a lot, but he's had a pretty uneven camp in terms of like reports basically saying that he hasn't been able to separate consistently. I struggle to believe that he's going to be like a true alpha from day one, just based on his profile. Khalil Shakir has been playing a little bit more. Curtis Samuel is kind of already injured with a turf toe injury. So like I had high expectations for him, but like, I mean, again, that's not something you can count on. I think we see a lot more Dalton Kincaid and with some Dawson Knox here. And then also we look at the offensive coordinator splits. They went through an offensive coordinator change, mid-season last year with Ken Dorsey that is 63% neutral pass rate, 3.1% over expectation. Joe Brady came in as offensive coordinator, so weeks 11 through the conference championship, just a 57% neutral pass rate, negative 2.3% pass rate over expectation. So like when you counter the game script that they did, which was like they were winning a lot of times, they were still running the ball significantly more. So I think that we see a little bit more running. I think that we see probably more 2 tight end sets. And then when they are in like spread stuff, we're just going to see a mixture of Kincaid and Khalil Shakir out there mixing it up. So offensively, I think that Josh Allen and them are going to be fine. Like they're going to find a way to still be good because that's what elite quarterbacks do. Elite quarterbacks are, they carry the team. And Josh Allen has proven, I think, at this point that he can carry the team when capable. So, or when necessary. So I'm interested to hear your take on the defensive side of the ball because it seems like they lost a lot. Matt Milano's kind of like, out for an extended period of time. And like that was a big issue last year. Like, and then their defense also, I think, had big splits that we talked about on the show. Like last season, it was like midway through last year, they just like stunk. But so their final numbers look okay, but like they just had a really bad chunk of the season. And I'm curious if you have any thoughts on the defensive side there.
Well, the thing that's interesting about what happened last year is some of the same stuff that's happening this year. And those splits kind of started when Milano was off the field. He got hurt in that game in London against the Jags, and it was kind of downhill from there. Micah Hyde was also injured. They didn't get anything out of Von Miller, who they obviously invested a ton into. They started to do, they play a lot of 2 deep safety, and McDermott had to use Poyer in the box a little bit more, and they did a lot of things that they don't typically do. And the Milano injury, again, he's out for extended period of time, maybe most of the season. That's a problem. Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde, who have been there in the back end for feels like forever, are gone. So like the spine of your defense, like your play callers defensively are not there. I believe in McDermott. I think he's a good defensive coach. The Cornerback room is really strong. That helps. I think that they can get there's some upside in the edge rushers and along the defensive line. Oliver's a dude. Daquan Jones, when he was healthy last year, was really, really good. I think there's some upside with Greg Russo. If they can get anything from Von Miller this year, that's a bonus. Like AJ Epinesa played pretty well last year. So I still think it's probably top 10, worst case scenario, top 15 unit. But like Taylor Rapp is now the only guy that we know is starting for them at safety. He was their third safety last year. Now he's like clearly safety one. It's a mix of like Cole Bishop, who they drafted in the second round, who they really like, has not been able to stay healthy. DeMar Hamlin might be playing starting reps at safety. Mike Edwards also has not been healthy this season and kind of a journeyman, bounced around, was in Kansas City last year. We don't really know who is getting free safety reps here for this team. So, but again, I think McDermott can figure it out. Offensive stuff is peculiar to me too. I've, joked with you. I'm like, I don't know how they get explosives outside of Josh Allen tucking and running.
Yeah.
Because they are it's a weird group and there's a lot of guys, but I feel like it's hard for them to be multiple because their best running kind of formation guys and talent group isn't necessarily who they want when they want to be in a pass catching situation, right? Like Mac Hollins is not a dude you necessarily want in the field. He could be like the Justin Watson, who's just out running wind sprints, but Mac Hollins is a really good pass blocker. I think he's going to get a bunch of snaps. Like Reggie Gilman is a really good pass blocker. They like to play him a ton, but like Joe Brady played him a bunch. They play him as like a fullback and like as a lead blocker. And like, are they going to throw out of that formation? Is there a path to Mac Hollins getting snaps over Curtis Samuel? Like in this redundancy with like Khalil Shakur and Curtis Samuel. Like Samuel has been best out of the slot. That's where Shakur plays. Curtis Samuel was really good with Joe Brady in Carolina. They didn't run a lot of 12 with Joe Brady. Like, even though we think we might see that a little bit more when Joe Brady took over, there was only like 15% of their snaps were in 12. So is that Dawson Knox? I'm so curious about how like there's like these 7 guys that are like mixing and like you're kind of playing your hand with what you're doing pre-snap based off of who's on the field. Can they get down to like these are our dudes and we're going to be able to be multiple out of this? Because I don't know what that's going to look like. I'm very puzzled. But again, Josh Allen is getting the ball. The play starts with Josh Allen every time, and that's really, really good. So I don't know what they're going to look like. I don't know what their identity is.
They still have MVS, right? But he's like buried on the depth chart. I mean, He would be someone that I think could like at least stretch the field for them, open it up a little bit. But like, if he's not really a threat, like, do they even care about him one-on-one, on an island? Yeah. Like, are they like, does anyone really care about that? So yeah, they have like 4 guys. I would say Kincaid, Shakir, and Curtis Samuel, in my opinion, are their best receivers, but they all kind of win in the same area, right? So like they're going to win over the middle. They're going to win in like short to intermediate areas. I don't know. It's going to be a lot of pressure on Joe Brady to like, I think, figure some stuff out. So yeah, and a lot of running the ball. Again, I'm still confident they do figure it out, but it's not quite as clear as some of the other teams, especially elite teams, where it's like, oh, okay. Especially even the Chiefs now, like, you have Worthy stretch the field. You have Rashee Rice in short A-dot. Travis Kelce's probably a chain mover at this point. Marquise Brown can come in and do whatever. Like, you have those like layers of an offense that we just don't really have that in this scenario with the Bills.
Yeah. It's the explosives, right? Like, yes, I know that Diggs wasn't good last year. I don't think there's any doubt that Stephon Diggs was not healthy last year, especially late in the season, right? Like, I don't think that was the case. And we've had some reports about that. Gabe Davis, kind of a one-trick pony, but at least was a threat, and it's shown some upside that like MVS doesn't necessarily have. So I'm with you. I don't know how they get there and how they land the plane, but I think they probably land the plane. It feels like a playoff team to me. The division probably up for grabs, but again, part of it's just faith in McDermott being able to scheme and design, and Josh Allen having the ball in his hands every single play. I think they're going to be able to run the football. Like James Cook was really good last year when they leaned into it with Brady. So people really like Ray Davis as kind of a thumper. Like, so, and the offensive line's a good run blocking line. So they're going to win some football games and be in the mix. And I just don't know what the ceiling is. I don't know that doesn't feel like they're in the same stratosphere as some of the other elite teams in the league anymore. I feel like that window, I don't know that the window closed because you still have Josh Allen's young, but like with the current roster, I don't know that that's who they are. So I could be wrong. Could be flop lag year. We were on them last year and they figured it out this year. But again, Josh Allen can kind of cure all woes. All right, we'll talk about your Dolphins. 2-0. Let's activate 2-0 here. The Dolphins are 25-1 to win the Super Bowl. Best number there on Caesars. They are 12-1 to win the AFC. And they are plus 2.25 to win the division here. 9.5 is the win total. It is slightly juiced to the over. I mean, a lot of questions with this team. I think the upside's pretty massive. I don't know. I think we know who they are. I know who they are offensively. They're electric. There's a ton of speed, and I think they're going to come in with some sort of wrinkle that we've never seen before, some sort of pre-snap motion or some sort of jet, like whatever. They're going to do something different and unique, and they have talented, get the ball in space, track athletes, and a quarterback who's decisive and accurate and gets the ball out quick, and the upside there is pretty massive. They beat the shit out of bad football teams last year and got their face kicked in against really good football teams. And I kind of think that's probably the path for them again. But I could be wrong. I'll give you the floor on the Dolphins.
No, I feel pretty good about this offense here. I think that they actually got better in a lot of ways. Like, Devon Achane, I think came into his own when he was healthy. They have him healthy at this point. They added Jonnu Smith, the tight end, who they've talked up a lot in terms of using him on carries and getting him into space and using him as an actual player instead of just like the tight end being out there to be out there. They also have Malik Washington, I think, is going to play in the slot as well with Odell Beckham on PUP. So I think that they added more versatility offensively. Their offensive line still isn't great, 24th right now in our rankings. So but that being said, the way that Mike McDaniel schemes everything up, I think that matters significantly less because they stretch the field so well in the running game. They get the ball out quick in the passing game. They find Tyreek in these spots. It's less of an issue for the Dolphins than I would say almost anyone else in the league with offensive line. Now, that being said, I think where they got themselves into problems and issues with these games is against good defenses, you almost need something that you can fall back into. And they don't really have that. There's not this is what they do well all the time, no matter what. The Niners do that, and that's all they do, which is annoying on the other end. But they don't have that on the other end. They've just been schematically doing whatever and throwing these short passes and then doing stretch runs. But when good teams are able to compete with that and they have enough guys that they're not getting tricked and again, they got their teeth kicked in by a lot of those teams. And I want to kick it to you on the defensive side. There was 5 or 6 guys plus a defensive coordinator change that are all different. I can't conceptualize how that's going to materialize for the game. But I'm interested to hear your thoughts on what that even looks like. Better, worse, same. I have no idea.
Well, we know the vibes are better, right?
Way better.
Way better. Because the Vic Fangio vibes. Apparently. Yeah, that did not go so well. So, I mean, I think pretty massive overhaul, both on and off the field, right? Anthony Weaver comes in. Again, we have Anthony Weaver coming from the Mike Macdonald tree. And the Mike Macdonald tree is something that I want to be pretty bullish on based off of what we've seen from that guy so far. And this is another one of the guys that is, coming off of his staff to take on, a coordinator role. So that bodes well. Jalen Phillips being back now for week 1 is surprising and bodes very well for them because Bradley Chubb is still out. Chop Robinson is, in his first year because it was it's just going to be Chop Robinson. How are they going to get any pass rush here? Christian Wilkins is gone. I thought the pass rush was going to be a real problem. There are just there's a lot of turnover and I'm interested to see how that plays out. But again, I feel like they're going to be a team that maybe finds their footing when Weaver gets a little bit more up to speed. Chop Robinson's a little bit more comfortable. Maybe then Bradley Chubb comes back. So they're probably better late in the season. The problem is the schedule late in the season is just gauntlet. But there's not a ton of depth here. That makes me a little bit nervous, especially corner. I think they'll be okay. But if they have any sort of injuries or they have any sort of cluster injuries here, it's going to get pretty weak pretty quickly. And that makes me a little bit nervous. But again, Xavier Howard gone. Poyer's a little bit older. Kendall Fuller's a little bit older. They should be okay, but when you start to get in the next guys behind Jalen Ramsey and some of that stuff, it can get difficult, especially if you're not able to win up front. But again, Phillips is a massively impactful player and looks like he's good to go for week 1, which I was not expecting 2 months ago for this team. So I think there's upside here, maybe more upside than last season, but I think the floor is significantly worse too, with a rookie play caller and not a ton of depth. So again, a lot of variance depending on who the matchup is and who they could take and get and when they get them in the season. Because again, the schedule, my man, the schedule is like, look at the week 13 on, like
horrible.
It's not that I don't see a win on there, but there's no layup. Absolutely no layups.
No, I mean, we're looking at Green Bay, Jets, at Texans, Niners, at Browns, at Jets. I mean, it's almost honestly kind of the same thing as we saw this year in terms of like, they played really well. They beat a lot of good teams. They were squarely in the mix to win the division. They should have won the division, and then they just choked it away. And, obviously I lost a lot of tickets because of that. 2-9 let me down. But the first half of the season, like, again, we're going to see probably a lot of great wins here early because you have like the Jags, Seahawks, Titans, Patriots, twice. You got the Raiders, you got the Cardinals. Like, there's very winnable games that they're probably going to drop 35 to 40 points. So, like, again, this is going to be a team that I think we need to put in our notes now, like, hey, evaluate whether this team was just kicking the shit out of bad teams or if they're actually good, come like week 10, because I think we're going to have something similar here. And I'm probably going to get myself a little tied up betting some team total overs or some over on the Dolphins and they score like 14, 17 points. Like, it happens basically every year.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look at what happened early last year. The Chargers in week 1, we thought they were a good team. They ended up not. But again, it was 36-34. Boom. Out the gates, just points. At New England, kind of a mud fight, but they end up winning. Then you get the week 3 game. They hang 70 on Denver, right? And all of a sudden our minds are warped. It's like 70. Like, that doesn't happen. They've been kind of electric and doing some fun stuff. And, obviously, everyone likes, it's exciting to have a young head coach and Mike McDaniel who can come in and, do some unique things and, new wrinkles, find ways to get speed guys, in space, one-on-one and doing all sorts of stuff. But then again, they lose in Buffalo, but then the Giants, the Panthers, they boat race those guys 30 plus. And it's like, those are shitty football teams. They started to play really good teams. They lost football games. They lost games and did not have that upper echelon. And then no-showed, obviously. And in the playoffs, first of all, I was like, no human should have been outside in that game in Kansas City, but like, they did not show up even a little bit. It was kind of a rough game. So yeah, who are they when they play the best teams? We'll have to figure it out. So there'll be some buying opportunities.
They don't have a downhill running game. Like, that's like the thing that kind of bothers me.
The line's worse too. The line's worse.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, they like to run on the perimeter and like, that's a cool thing and that works. But like, Robert Hunt in the interior was a big loss for them. He took the bag and went to Carolina. Like, Taron Armstrong is good, but like that Armstead, he's never healthy. Like, he's questionable every week, it feels like. And he's like the anchor of their line, like, and massively important for their pass game too. So they need Armstead to stay healthy. There's like, it's thin, right? There's like alts on this team, like bad, like floor alts are maybe in play, but also like this is a playoff team. You and I aren't surprised. Like, they're explosive offensively. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, 4 out of the last 6 that you listed are on the road. 3 of those could be weather. Like week 13 at Green Bay could be fine. That's Thanksgiving. That, a night game in Green Bay on Thanksgiving, that could be cold.
Chilly.
But yeah, 17 and 18 on the road in Cleveland, 18 on the road against the Jets, a game that probably matters in New York, in like late December, early January. Those are tough weather spots for a team that is definitely weather, like impacted by the weather. Like, so that matters. The other one is, Houston, who we think is probably a better football team, but at least that's in the dome. So yeah, tough spot for them. All right. Last is New England. I mean, we can keep it pretty quick here. Just not a whole lot to say. They are 275 to win the Super Bowl. They are 125 to 1 to win the AFC. You can get them at 28 to 1 to win the division, which is wild to me. I bet golf outrights all the time. Yeah, I love the 25 to maybe 50 section. And those are guys that actually have win equity that can win. And now I have to lay shorter prices than that for the Patriots to win this division. So I got that in my mind. I know probabilities are maybe the same for team division versus 156-man field of PGA Tour golf, but 28 too short for New England to win the division. Win total 4.5. still kind of juiced to the over. Obviously, new era. Gerard Mayo, Belichick is gone. Drake May. We obviously won't see Drake May until later in the season. They announced today Jacoby Brissett's the starter. Felt like last year was the bottom. I don't think it was. I think this is probably the bottom, or maybe the start of the bottom, because like they traded their best player, Matthew Judon. Their other maybe second best player, Christian Barmore, has blood clots and is on IR for an unknown period of time. Is going to miss some start of the season. I think Christian Gonzalez is an exciting young cornerback, but like the thought was they were basically running it back on the defensive side with Gerard Mayo there. They were still going to be competitive defensively. Well, you pull Judon and Barmore out and they are no longer competitive defensively. I think like Keon White gets some snaps. That could be exciting. Josh Uche gets some snaps. That could be exciting. But like we thought that there was a path for the Patriots to maybe be in games or even win games because the defense could be top 10. And that is absolutely no longer the case. The offensive line is bad. And it's missing starters. Cole Strange is out he got a late season leg injury. He's probably missing half the season. It's a bad unit to begin with. It's Brissett and a bunch of like wide receiver 3s, wide receiver 4s. Maybe there's more upside in Jalen Polk or Javon Baker or something like that. Pop Douglas, who knows? But it's not a good football team, Connor. Go ahead, pile on the Pats.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing that we need to focus on here is the offense. Like, I mean, I think that they're trotting out like one of the most pathetic offenses I've seen in a while. Like this is it's because it's tough because like what could their identity possibly be, right? Like they have like our 28th ranked offensive line after losing Trent Brown. They're starting receivers, like you mentioned, are a bunch of nobodies. Like I think maybe Jalen Polk could be okay. I think Demario Douglas is fine. Who they just put? Kendrick Bourne just went on like IR or PUP or something, right?
Yeah, they need Kendrick Bourne.
And I think he's actually fine. Like I think
they need him.
Yeah. But again, all these guys are the same. Like they all win in the same way and they win in the same area. It's kind of the same issue with the Bills, except they don't have Josh Allen and a good offensive line or a reasonable offensive coordinator. So in this spot now, like maybe we see some Javon Baker, maybe we see some Tyquan Thornton. Like Tyquan Thornton looks like he's going to be their starting kind of like stretch outside receiver.
I don't think we see Pop Douglas outside of 3 receiver sets. I think he's the slot in 3 receiver sets. So he was good last year, but I mean, not a difference maker.
Yeah, and I think what's lost in a lot of the preseason highlights with May and what we see, and Caleb Williams, to be fair, is that the highs were high. Like there were some fun throws, but the consistency was really bad. Like there was a while where, we bet Drake May in week 2 of preseason over 75 yards. He played a quarter and a half and he had like 60. He missed a lot of throws. Guys missed drops and he's playing against backups. He's playing with guys, the receiver core, like that are going to be starters, like probably like fringe starters in the unit. So I don't know, like obviously the highs are high and that's the upside here. And I think that's actually the reason they didn't start is because they're going to have Jacoby Brissett is like 50-50 to make it out of the season healthy. Like maybe less, maybe he might not even get benched just because he sucks. Like he might just get benched out of health because he's going to take so many hits from this offensive line. So I expect a heavy running game offensively, throw when they have to. The only thing that I thought was going to keep them in some games and thought that maybe, okay, the Pats won't be the worst team in the league clearly heading into the season was the defense. And then they traded away Matthew Judon. They're 8th in EPA per play last year. I think they probably fall to the 15 to 20 range. They still have some good players. Like it's not like they're like completely devoid of talent like some of the other teams, but that's my analysis right now. It's like that, and we get into the schedule after, but like just from a team-based perspective, like what's your hope? Like is there anyone that I'm missing here specifically?
What's funny to me is what if you're Jacoby Brissett and they're like, how are you today? We're like, we can't throw our rookie behind this unit.
Yeah,
like,
literally. They had to tell him.
You're the guy. We don't want him to get hurt. So we're gonna play you. That's tough, man. And I know he probably knows his lot in life. It's not a bad spot for him to be. Look, when he was a rookie and on New England, he probably didn't think that he would still be in the league at this point. So he's probably happy to still be getting the ball, or even cashing a check. So I'm sure he's fine. And that's the best way for him to continue to earn a paycheck is to get on the field and show that he's capable. And he was capable last year when we saw him with Cleveland. Like he showed some upside. In the past, kind of like the core of the Pats is that they had a really strong offensive line always too. And the offensive line, that was part of the problem with Drake May in the preseason too, is who's the starters, who's healthy. Like, we don't even know if he's playing in front of or behind what's the starting offensive line, or like who are the swing guys. It's just rough. So I'm very optimistic on Drake May long term. I wanted him. We got him. Let's see what he can be. Let's not get him hurt. He's also very young. He's just turned 21. He's on the younger side, right? So you got to remember he is still a young prospect, even though he was, had some reps in North Carolina. Like, he came out and was a younger guy. So I do think that there's some upside there long term. At least I feel like Polk and Baker are guys that can be around for a little bit, because they've airballed wide receiver for 2 decades in the draft. So maybe we get a couple of like rotational pieces here. I don't know that Polk's ever going to be your one, but like, at least I feel like maybe we're getting some youth. That has been the problem the last couple of years post Brady, is that we still whiffed on the draft. No one's signing. Like, there's no talent. Like, there's no Patriot magic. There's no Tom Brady magic anymore. You need to actually have talent. And now it's really hard to have unbiased eye and go, this is a competitive roster. It's not a competitive roster. There's talent defensively still. Kyle Duggar's a good player. I am interested in Keon White, who they drafted in the 2nd round last year out of Georgia Tech, who I think he's kind of a guy you can move around a bunch. Uche's been a good limited snap guy off the end. Like, these guys are going to get reps now because there's no Matthew Judon. I think, we saw very limited season from Christian Gonzalez, but it looked good. And I'm excited to see him. Can he be a true number 1 on the outside? That would be interesting. The rest of it's just not good. It's not good enough. It's not competitive. And the schedule is the hardest in the league. Which seems completely unfair, but it is by far, it's the hardest in the league. It's awful. If you want to win football games. And I don't think they want to win football games necessarily, right? So it could be okay.
They're not favored in a single game. They're like, quote, winnable games are against Seattle in week 2, which again is probably going to be Jacoby Brissett, or at Tennessee in week 9. And then I guess they're +2 at home against the Colts. They're way worse than all of those teams. And those are the closest. Those are the only games with like less than a 3-point spread, I think, the whole season. Maybe the Chargers game in week 17, they're 2.5-point dogs. Again, they're worse than the Chargers too, like by a lot. And so it's just, you go in your head, like you think about in your head, 3rd and 4 after a good first 2 run plays. Who and how are they converting a 3rd and 4? Like Hunter Henry?
Yes.
That's maybe if Jalen Polk's okay, like, can they get the ball out in time? Like, I'm interested to see them be bad, like this bad offensively. And I think their games are just going to be so boring. Like, I think they're just going to be horrendously boring because their defense is going to actually play fine sometimes. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. I think a successful season is, hopefully having the first pick in the draft and seeing signs out of Drake May where you're like, okay, I get it. We can do it with this guy, right? This is a below average receiving core and a below average offensive line. And we saw signs late in the season that there's some there. That's all we need. That's a successful season for the Patriots. There are some, I guess it's a little bit softer late in the season in terms of depending on where they're playing. But again, like not really. I mean, they're not better than any of these football teams, which makes it tough. So, first pick in the draft I think would be a successful season for the Pats and keeping May upright. That's kind of it, man. The line's bad. You're going to have the first pick, but you need everything. So at least it's not a good quarterback draft. You don't feel like maybe you'd be better off still. Anytime I think you have the first pick, you want it to be a great quarterback draft so you can leverage out of that. But, they're not even in that spot this year, I guess. So
the Patriots got to find their Panthers, just like the Bears did. You got to find your Panthers, fleece them, get someone to trade. I mean, someone will be quarterback needy. Like someone will want to go quarterback enough. Like trade out of the top pick. You're still entire units away from having a competitive roster. So you need just like assets and players. It's just going to be a long haul unless Drake May is like sick and then they like go ham in free agency and the draft. Like that's what it would take for them to be good in the next like 3 years. Well, 2 years. 2 years.
They have money. They do have money. So does anyone want to take it? We'll have to figure that out. So look, that's a fair point. Because we know going in it's a bad quarterback class, but at the same time, at this time heading into the Joe Burrow year, Joe Burrow was not expected to be a first-round pick. Never mind the
Right.
layup consensus, number one overall. No one thought Jaden Daniels was going, like that last year. Right. So things happen. Guys get better in the offseason. These are college kids are talking about improving. You never know. So, we'll have to wait and see what happens. Just for New England's sake, hopefully they're in the position where they can leverage that. And like you said, find their Panthers. Because, people are talking about like 4-13, 3-14. I don't see the 3. I don't see the 4. But again, like teams win games. Like,
they'll win random games.
Yeah. So I don't know how to bet it though. I'd still lead under 4.5 because it's 4 seems probably like the ceiling, right? Like 4 games in the schedule is tough. Like that means they're probably beating the Chargers. That feels probably unlikely. The rest of it is like, it's bad. They're having a win on the road in Tennessee, catching a team with an injured quarterback late in the season and they win that game. Like these are the things that they need to have happen to get to 4, which is a tough scene. So
yeah. Last question on the Patriots. When do we see Drake May?
It's tough because it's a late season bye. So there's no natural, easy spot where you're like, oh, let's give him 2 weeks of practice. You go to London in week 7, which is tough too. That's the Jags second game for the Jags in London. They play the Bears and the Patriots back-to-back weeks in London. That could be a spot, I guess. Like, do you want to make the kids first start overseas? Could be interesting. I don't know. Because then you're getting a spot where you're week 9, then you go like 3 out of the next 4 on the road. You'd like to get maybe an easier start at home. So, maybe week 5 would probably be a decent spot. You get your teeth kicked in by the Jets and the Niners. And you're like, all right, let's just see what the kids got. We got Miami and Houston coming back-to-back weeks. Just again, 2 playoff teams basically, but at least you get 2 home games, let them get situated and go from there. That week 5 maybe makes sense. Otherwise you're probably pushing late in the season.
Yeah, I guess I'm a little bit more like I thought it was kind of closer to 50-50 almost that he was going to be the starter now based off of the preseason, like how bad Jacoby Brissett looked. So I was kind of thinking almost like as early as like halftime of week 2 if they're in a game and Jacoby Brissett is playing like shit. But that might be too optimistic, because that's like a winnable game. But again, I don't know if they even want to win. Maybe they don't really want to win. But I have a tough time getting there. Most coaches are not really on board with that. Like it's tanking doesn't really happen. At least from, a coaching perspective. I believe it definitely happens from a GM. Like they're definitely trying to from a higher level perspective. So yeah, I think you're probably right though. Like week 5, 6, maybe somewhere in that range probably makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I mean, look, Mayo's wanted this spot. It's his first gig. He's not looking to go 3-14 to play the long game. Like he wants to win football games. This is a former player. Like he's wired to try to win too, right? He's not, it's not no offense to analytical nerds, and if that's the term, like, right. But it's just like, this is not like some guy plucked in off the street who's just trying to like execute the Kraft's plan to like tank. He's trying to win football games. So, and the interesting thing is like the verbiage from him was interesting. Like he's like, hey, like May outplayed him. If it was just that, like May was the guy. But then today it was almost like, he's our quarterback. We're not picking a time. So like, they're going to roll with him. So I think he'd have to be really bad to like get pulled in the middle of week 2 to lose this job. Like he could be really bad because everything around him is pretty bad. But like, I think he'd have to be like just Tim Boyle bad to kind of lose this job that early. So I just don't think you throw him to the Wolves back-to-back road games against the Jets and the Niners. I just think that's really rough. So Miami makes the most sense.
That would be brutal. Jeff adds, Connor's been looking forward to this all off season. He's just dancing on my grave. I mean, in general, I love talking about bad teams. I think it's funny. So like, I just think it's like, I love unders. I like betting against bad players. I just think that's fun. Tim Boyle over 1.5 interceptions last year, like lock of the century. I think he hit it in the first half. So that was great.
To be fair, Connor has Patriot fans in his life. So
I do. Multiple, not just Noonan.
Multiple. Yes, multiple. So he has to, navigate that, through, some of the last decade or so. So I think it's very fair for Connor and anyone else to celebrate, a downfall of New England who, football was easy. We just went to the AFC Championship game every year for like 15 years. So like, it was just kind of like, penciled in. who are we going to play in the AFC Championship game, and that was kind of it. So, he gets to do this. It's okay. So, all right, buddy, you touched on it a little bit. You gave us a preview. I think I know who your AFC Championship game is based off of your earlier tell, but rewind a little bit. Remind me of your NFC Championship game, and then give me your AFC one.
NFC, I think I had the Eagles and I believe Lions or Niners. It was one of the two. And AFC right now, I'm going with Chiefs Jets.
Chiefs Jets. Okay, I think you had Lions because we both had the Lions.
Okay, then it was Lions. Yeah, Lions.
Eagles, Lions.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's hear yours. Then we got to do Super Bowl real quick too.
Yeah, I had Lions, Packers.
Okay.
I'm good with that, I think. But I also think I think it's Niners, Eagles are in that mix too. And then I think it's going to be the Chiefs and the Texans in the AFC Championship game. I'd like to get spicy with the Texans, but I think it's Chiefs, Lions in the Super Bowl. And you know what? Motor City takes home their first Super Bowl.
Way. Oh,
the Detroit Lions take it down. And Jared Goff, redemption song. And the Lions win the Super Bowl.
The roar has been restored. I don't know.
Fully restored.
That one guy that's been hating on you for years. The roar has been restored. Get it on record. You can send this clip to him. I like it. It's fun. I'm going to go with Eagles, Chiefs. Eagles win the Super Bowl. God, I really don't. I know that the Eagles just put James Bradbury on IR, season-ending injury. So that
sucks.
Yeah, but whatever. Yeah, right. I mean, they drafted like 5 other guys and added other 5 other guys.
Fine.
Who cares?
Yeah.
It's all part of the plan. Trust the process. The Eagles are winning the Super Bowl. There you go. That's my pump-up speech to Eagles Nation.
Any vibe check-in? Because the vibes in Philly apparently have not been great.
What? I don't even know. What does that mean? Like, what is
the head? I don't know that Siri. Like, I don't think the head coach and the quarterback are like vibing necessarily. I don't think they're like on the same page, or some bad juju last year at the end of the year. I think that's maybe carried over. I'm not sure. That's the bear case for the Eagles, is the juju's bad.
Yeah, I mean, good thing we got Kellen Moore in town, so it'll be fine. He doesn't even have to talk to the head coach. It'll just be all OC. Fuck the head coach.
Talk to him at the parade.
Yeah. See you when you got a ring on your finger. That's when it'll be good.
I don't believe that the Bradbury injury is. It's noteworthy because he's been a decent player in the league for a while, but like he was a problem last year. That's why they went very aggressively and looked to add other players to support Darius Slay. Vontae Maddox is back. Like I think they're going to be okay. With what they have going on there. So Bradbury doesn't matter too much. So, okay. Connor's got the Eagles over the Chiefs. I have the Lions over the Chiefs. So we both have the Chiefs there. Connor has the Chiefs knocking off the Jets. And I have the Chiefs knocking off the Texans. So yeah, good stuff. This is for the aggregators out there. Maybe for victory laps, social clips when we're right later in the season too. So,
oh yeah.
Awesome. Appreciate, again, everyone rolling with us this off season. Again, you want to check out any of the previous shows, you can go ahead and do that. Find that. Those are all, again, 4 for 4 bets on the YouTube channel. Move the line wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe. You're going to want to be here tomorrow for the prop show. First prop drop of the season. Brought back High Slop. Again, High Slop is a fantastic just fantastic addition to that show. We had a ton of fun with it last year. Feedback was overwhelmingly positive from you guys, and we really appreciated that. We got a little bit outside, at least from Connor and I, and what we had done previously with props and with the prop drop. We got outside of our lane a little bit and made that show a little bit more off the rails and brought into some more unique stuff. But I think that's the stuff that people bet, to be honest. People love same game parlays. People like some lotto ticket stuff. And I think that we do. We're cognizant of making sure that we do it in a way that represents the 4 for 4 brand in a good way. We're still trying to bring you data-driven analysis, even though we're looking for like 35-1 uncorrelated parlays, right? So we're trying to find ways to be both, data mindsets and find ways to bring some exotics that make it a little fun. We're gonna do that tomorrow with season-long stuff, and then next Friday for week 1. Maybe we'll touch a little bit too tomorrow on some like early season stuff, since we're starting to get some, Thursday night, Friday night openers that are already out there. So again, come back tomorrow for that. So good stuff as always, Connor. Appreciate it. We'll be back again tomorrow. So subscribe before you take off. For Connor, I'm Ryan. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.